Emergent Strategy, written by Adrienne Marie Brown. Read by Naomi Kirst-Schultz on August 16th, 2022. Introduction. First and foremost, thank you for opening this book. I hope you enjoy reading it as much as I have enjoyed living, learning, and gathering it. Wherever you are beginning this, take a deep breath and notice how you feel in your body and how the world around you feels. Take a deep breath for the day you have had so far, and a breath for this precious moment which cannot be recreated, and now another for the day and the night coming. Here you are in the cycle between the past and the future, choosing to spend your miraculous time in the exploration of how humans, especially those seeking to grow liberation and justice, can learn from the world around us how to best collaborate, how to shape change. As I am gathering and writing this book, there is a trail of ants moving along the ceiling of my room, and the sounds of a small jungle town coming in and out of the screened open windows, birds cawing, laughter, children's delight emerging from that, and then tears. A car backfires and I flinch. A lizard peeks at me from the door. It's been raining for a few days and the air feels thick. I feel good. I've been meditating, picking up my yoga practice, biking the 2 miles to the beach when the sun comes out. Something is injured in my knee, but I am feeling alive against my limits. I came to this edge of Mexico to pull a book together because a few years ago it was here, near this tiny portion of the massive ocean, that I began to realize how important emergent strategy for building complex patterns and systems of change through relatively small interactions is to me. The potential scale of transformation that could come from movements intentionally practicing this adaptive, relational way of being on our own and with others. The waves drifting me towards and then away from the shore, seabirds of all kinds flocking over the salty blue, pelicans dropping down and scooping schools of tiny fish into their big mouths, diving under the moving surface to see how everything humans leave in the water is repurposed as an ecosystem, laying in a hammock and watching mosquito mamas approach me, wait for my attention to wander so they can feed on my blood. I love the scene at the end of The Matrix, where Neo sees everything in green on black code. Emergent strategy is a way that all of us can begin to see the world in life code, awakening us to the sacred systems of life all around us. Many of us have been and are becoming students of these systems of life, wondering if in fact we can unlock some crucial understanding about our own humanity if we pay closer attention to this place we are from, the bodies that we are in. The world is full of beauty, magic, miracles, and patterns that induce wonder. This book is a collection of essays, speeches, spells, interviews, conversations, tools, profiles, and poems sharing my learning processes in the face of that wonder. You are basically holding a book of me saying, "Wow, everything's so amazing," or "That's not wow. Why not go with the wow option?" Emergence is one of the best concepts I have learned for discussing this wow, this wonder. Emergence is the way complex systems and patterns arise out of a multiplicity of relatively simple interactions. It is another way of speaking about the connective tissue of all that exists. The way, the Tao, the force, change, God, goddess, life, birds flocking, cells splitting, fungi whispering underground. Emergence emphasizes critical connections over critical mass, building authentic relationships, listening with all the senses of the body and the mind. With our human gift of reasoning, we have tried to control or overcome the emergent processes that are our own nature, the processes of the planet we live on, and the universe we call home. The result is crisis at each scale that we are aware of, from our deepest inner moral sensibilities to the collective scale of climate and planetary health, and beyond, to our species in relation to space and time. The crisis is everywhere, massive, 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 and we are small. But emergence notices the way small actions and connections create complex systems, patterns that become ecosystems and societies. Emergence is our inheritance as a part of this universe. It is how we change. Emergent strategy is how we intentionally change in ways that grow our capacity to embody the just and liberated worlds that we long for. A few words on what this book is and is not. I am offering this content as a cluster of thoughts in development, observations of existing patterns, and questions of how we apply the brilliance of the world around us to our efforts to coexist in and with this world as humans, particularly for those of us seeking to transform the crises of our time, to turn our legacy towards harmony. This book is for people who want to radically change the world, to apply natural order and our love of life to the ways we create the next world, to tap into the most ancient systems and patterns for wisdom as we build tomorrow. This book is not one that will teach you all about hard science, as I am not a scientist. As Octavia Butler said, I would never have been a good scientist. My attention span was too short for that. My style is more, ooh, ah, wow, how? Than empirical data proves that. I am writing this book primarily for other people like myself who crinkle our brows and lean away when someone starts speaking math, who falls asleep almost immediately when attempting to read nonfiction, but who get spun into wonder about the natural world and want to know things, who feel and know more than we can say or explain and want to know how knowing those things can transform the ways we approach changing the world. I'm sure there are science people who could write a contrarian book to anything in here. The natural world actually supports any worldview, competitive, powerless, isolationist, violent. For instance, humans so far have generally deified and aligned with the quote-unquote king of the jungle or forest, lions, tigers, and bears, and yet so many of these creatures, for all their isolated ferocity and alpha power, are going extinct. While a major cause of that extinction is our human impact, there is something to be said for adaptation, the adaptation of small, collaborative species. Roaches and ants and deer and fungi and bacteria and viruses and bamboo and eucalyptus and squirrels and vultures and mice and mosquitoes and dandelions and so many other more collaborative life forms continue to proliferate, survive, grow, sustain. I want to understand how we humans do that, how we earn a place on this precious planet, get in the quote-unquote right relationship with it. So I am focusing on the ways creatures and ecosystems function together in and with the natural world. I am open to critiques, of course, if they are offered in the spirit of collective liberation. Staying focused on our foundational, miraculous nature is actually very hard work in our modern culture of deconstruction. We are socialized to see what is wrong, missing, off, to tear down the ideas of others and uplift our own. To a certain degree, our entire future may depend on learning to listen without assumptions or defenses. So I'm open to hearing what doesn't work about this book, as long as you promise to stay open to what does work. We all learn differently, and this book favors those who learn like me, through inspiration, through late-night conversations, personal revelations, experience, and reflection. I hope it will inspire and engage your interest in complex sciences and in being of a miraculous world. Quote, exercise your human mind as fully as possible, knowing it is only an exercise. Build beautiful artifacts, solve problems, explore the secrets of the physical universe. Savor the input from all the senses, feel the joy and sorrow, the laughter, the empathy, compassion, and tote the emotional memory in your travel bag. End quote. Ryan Power from Waking Life. This is not a book to displace all the strategic processes in play in social justice movements, or to discount the work that has happened up until now. There have been effective movements towards justice and liberation throughout the history of human existence. I'm thrilled humans have continuously stood up against our own weaknesses. I think throughout history, we have done our best given what we knew, and we will continue to do so. I also know that there are so many brilliant strategists out there who turn data into action and policy, and I respect that work. I see this offering as a noticing that can shape our next steps, as more water joining the river, and as a way to get aware of what we have learned so far so that we can move forward from there instead of repeating lessons we have already learned. While my default position is wonder, I am not without critique, disappointment, frustration, and even depression when I contemplate humanity, especially our social justice movements, where my expectations are foolishly higher. I promise to be honest about the ways that those aspects of personal movement crisis show up in my longing and searching for other ways of being. Octavia Butler, one of the cornerstones of my awareness of emergent strategy, spoke of the fatal human flaw as a combination of hierarchy and intelligence. We are brilliant at survival, but brutal at it. We tend to slip out of togetherness the way we slip out of the womb, bloody and messy and surprised to be alone. And clever, able to learn with our whole bodies the ways of this world. My hope is that this content will deepen and soften that intelligence, such that we can align our behavior, our structures, and our movements with our visions of justice and liberation, and give those of us co-creating the future more options for working with each other and embodying the things that we fight for. Dignity, collective power, love, generative conflict, and community. I will be satisfied if this book sparks conversations, new practices, and projects where people keep noticing, observing, and learning about emergence and liberation. If people see their experimental work affirmed by this content, and if I hear of people's self and collective transformation journeys related to emergent strategy, whether people use that exact terminology or not, I hope it is part of our revolutionary and evolutionary journey. I hope that this book is clear enough that people feel free to play with all of these observations and their own, add to it, discard what doesn't serve, and keep innovating. I don't want to be the owner of this, just a joyful conduit. Throughout the book, I weave together thoughts and theories I have learned in the past decades of study and obsession with original content, tools, spells, poems, examples, lists, assessments, everything I can think of that could be helpful for those interested in this work. As I was finishing the book, it felt like it was missing something. I realized that it was because the way I have learned about emergent strategy is in conversation with others. So I asked a bunch of people I considered to be teachers in my life to get in conversation with me, and as their words poured in poems and quotes and stories and testimonials, all of a sudden the book became really alive and exciting to me. It also grew to nearly 500 pages. I slowed down and started weaving and listening. Now you get to hear from a variety of people who are doing emergent strategy work, in their own words, in hybrid interview conversations, in love stories, and moments of wow. Some of this content is in these pages, and some of it is on the Emergent Strategy Ideation Institute site. The book can be engaged non-linearly. There is an assessment section. You can start there and let that determine where you dive in. You can just go straight to the tools at the end and start facilitating and experimenting with them. Or you can start with a review of the principles and elements of emergent strategy, which are in conversation with each other and can stand alone or cluster. You can read the book with others, assess each other and assess the groups and circles you move in, come up with new words and new observations for all of this. Notice how it connects and echoes other theoretical frameworks, underline everything that moves you, and then give it to someone younger than you. Come up with workshops and retreats around this work. Take it, run, go, grow, innovate, emerge. You can also just like the idea of this book. I often like an idea that I don't have time or attention to fully engage. I won't be mad. I believe we are all actually already aware of these things. We just have the volume turned down. May this serve as a turn up of our awareness of our place in the miraculous. There are a million paths into the future, and many of them can be transformative for the whole. The beginning of my obsession. We have lived through a good half-century of individualistic linear organizing led by charismatic individuals or budget-building institutions, which intends to reform or revolutionize society but falls back into modeling the oppressive tendencies against which we claim to be pushing. Some of those tendencies are seeking to assert one right way or one right strategy. Many align with the capitalistic belief that constant growth and critical mass is the only way to create change, even if they don't use that language. There are new strategies emerging, or being remembered. Many would describe this as a shift from a masculine to feminine, or patriarchal to feminist, leadership. I see that, and I think it is also about something beyond all of our binaries, evolving in relationship with our hierarchical tendency. At this point in my life, I am not against hierarchy. I notice hierarchies in my life and attention all the time, inside my own preferences for whom I spend my waking hours with and how I like to spend my time. I also deeply value experience and natural affinity for things. I am oriented towards healing and not math, so I don't offer myself up to create budgets for people. I follow other people's leadership around math. I offer leadership around healing, which comes more naturally to me. That give and take creates room for micro-hierarchies in a collaborative environment. One of my favorite questions today is, how do we turn our collective full-bodied intelligence towards collaboration if that is the way we will survive? My favorite life forms right now are dandelions and mushrooms. The resilience in these structures, which we think of as weeds and fungi, the incomprehensible scale, the clarity of identity, excites me. I love to see the way mushrooms can take substances that we think of as toxic and process them as food, or that dandelions spread not only themselves but their community structure, manifesting their essential qualities, which include healing and detoxifying the human body, to proliferate and thrive in a new environment. The resilience of these life forms is that they evolve while maintaining core practices that ensure their survival. A mushroom is a toxin transformer. A dandelion is a community of healers waiting to spread. What are we as humans? What is our function in this universe? One thing I have observed, when we are engaged in acts of love, we humans are at our best and most resilient. The love in romance that makes us want to be better people, the love of children that makes us change our whole lives to meet their needs, the love of family that makes us drop everything to take care of them, the love of community that makes us work tirelessly with broken hearts. Perhaps humans' core function is love. Love leads us to observe in a much deeper way than any other emotion. I think of how delightful it is to see something new in my lover's face, something they may only know from inside as a feeling. If love were the central practice of a new generation of organizers and spiritual leaders, it would have a massive impact on what was considered organizing. If the goal was to increase the love rather than winning or dominating a constant opponent, I think we could actually imagine liberation from constant oppression. We would suddenly be seeing everything we do, everyone we meet, not through the tactical eyes of war, but through the eyes of love. We would see that there's no such thing as a blank canvas, an empty land, or a new idea, but everywhere there is complex, ancient, fertile ground, full of potential. We would organize with the perspective that there is wisdom and experience and amazing story in the communities we love, and instead of starting up new ideas and organizations all the time, we would want to listen, support, collaborate, merge, and grow through fusion, not competition. We would understand that the strength of our movement is in the strength of our relationships, which could only be measured by their depth. Scaling up would mean going deeper, being more vulnerable, more empathetic. What does depth require from us, from me? In my longing for depth, I have been rerouting in the earth, in myself and my creativity, in my community, in my spiritual practices, honing in on work that is not only meaningful but feels joyful, listening with less and less judgment to the ideas and efforts of others, having visions that are long-term. Another part of walking this path has been the practice of humility. Enough humility to learn, to be taught, to have teachers. As a military brat, I've always rebelled against anyone I perceived as an authority. It's been hard and rewarding work to relinquish some of that resistance in order to let wisdom in. The Sufi poet Hafiz said, "How do I listen to others? As if everyone were my teacher, speaking to me her cherished last words." I am listening now with all of my senses, as if the whole universe might exist just to teach me more about love. I listen to strangers, I listen to random invitations, I listen to criticisms, I listen to my body, I listen to my creativity and to the artists who inspire me. I listen to elders, I listen to my dreams and the books that I am reading. I notice that the more I pay attention, the more I see order, clear messages, patterns, and invitations in the small or seemingly random things that happen in my life. In all of these ways, I meditate on love. This practice lets me connect to the part of myself that is divine, aligned with the universe, and the place within myself where I can be a conduit for spiritual truth. I don't know what else to call it. What comes forth as lessons and realizations and beliefs doesn't feel political or even about organizing. It feels like spirit leading me to the truth. Things like, the less I engage in gossip, the less I harbor suspicion, the more space I find within myself for miraculous experiences. When I fear the universe, I fear myself. When I love and am in awe of the universe, I love and am in awe of myself. Imagine, then, the power when I align with the universe. Nothing is required of me more than being and creating, simultaneously being present with who I am, who we are as a species, and creating who we must become, and within that, who I must become. When these truths come to me, it reminds me of how so many past leaders have humbled themselves or been forced, through prison sentences, exile, or other punitive measures, to live simple lives, spending time in prayer and meditation and reflection. It reminds me that they all seem to have this solid core of truth within themselves that cannot be shaken by external pressures. Those truths resonate with me when I read or hear about them, even without the context of their whole spiritual journey. But I know that to truly understand, to truly be able to transform myself and develop that own unflappable core, I cannot vicariously live their spiritual lessons. I must walk my own path. Our generation must walk the spiritual path that is available to us only in this time, with its own unique combination of wisdom and creation. I think there are many ways to find that simple path within ourselves, and I think that those of us who wish to see a truly radically different world must demand of ourselves the possibility that we are called to lead not from right to left or from minority to majority, but from spirit towards liberation. So I suppose it is time to come out as a spiritual leader in my own way, which means that everyone is my teacher. Quote, "You weren't starving before you got here. You were born full." End quote. Chani Nicholas. To write this book, I have had to get intimate with what I don't know, with my fears and doubts, with my restlessness. I was very young the first time I felt this restlessness, this sense that how things are isn't right, isn't enough, is empty even. Even as a child, this sense made me nauseous, like dancing around a black hole, praying it is a portal and not a nothingness. As I get older, I understand that it is the unknown and it is where the most exciting parts of life happen. This is my leap into the unknown. What is emergent strategy? Quote, emergence is the way complex systems and patterns arise out of a multiplicity of relatively simple interactions, end quote. I will repeat these words from Nick Obolensky throughout this book because they are the clearest articulation of emergence that I have come across. In the framework of emergence, the whole is a mirror of the parts. Existence is fractal. The health of the cell is the health of the species and the planet. There are examples of emergence everywhere. Birds don't make a plan to migrate, raising resources to fund their way, packing for scarce times, mapping out their pit stops. They feel a call in their bodies that they must go, and they follow it, responding to each other, each bringing their adaptations. There is an art to flocking, staying separate enough not to crowd each other, aligned enough to maintain a shared direction, and cohesive enough to always move towards each other, responding to destiny together. Destiny is a calling that creates a beautiful journey. Emergence is beyond what the sum of its parts could even imagine. A group of caterpillars or nymphs might not see flight in their future, but it's inevitable. It's destiny. Oak trees don't set an intention to listen to each other better or agree to hold tight to each other when the next storm comes. Under the earth, always they reach for each other. They grow such that their roots are intertwined and create a system of strength that is as resilient on a sunny day as it is in a hurricane. Dandelions don't know whether they are a weed or a brilliance, but each seed can create a field of dandelions. We are invited to be that prolific and to return fertility to the soil around us. Cells may not know that civilization is possible. They don't amass as many units as they can sign up to be the same. No, they grow until they split, until they complexify. Then they interact and intersect and discover their purpose. I am a lung cell. I am a tongue cell, and they serve it. And they die. And what emerges from these cycles are complex organisms, systems, movements, societies. Nothing is wasted or a failure. Emergence is a system that makes use of everything in the iterative process. It's all data. Octavia Butler said, civilization is to groups what intelligence is to individuals. It is a means of combining the intelligence of many to achieve ongoing group adaptation. She also said, all that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. We are constantly impacting and changing our civilization, each other, ourselves, intimates, strangers, and we are working to transform a world that is by its very nature in a constant state of change. Janine Benyus, a student of biomimicry, says, nature, life, would always create conditions conducive to life. She tells of a radical fringe of scientists who are realizing that natural selection isn't individual but mutual, that species only survive if they learn to be in community. How can we, future ancestors, align ourselves with the most resilient practices of emergence as a species? Many of us have been socialized to understand that constant growth, violent competition, and critical mass are the ways to create change. But emergence shows us that adaptations and evolution depend more upon critical, deep, and authentic connections, a thread that can be tugged for support and resilience. The quality of connection between the nodes in the patterns. Dare I say, love. And we know how to connect. We long for it. Octavia Butler said all successful life is adaptable, opportunistic, tenacious, interconnected, and fecund. Understand this. Use it. Shape God. And pulling from these, Adrienne Marie Brown shared the values of Emergent Strategy here. All successful life is fractal, adaptive, non-linear or iterative, resilient, interdependent or decentralized, creates more possibilities, scholarship, reflection, practice, experiment, and intention. This has been part 1 of the introduction of Emergent Strategy, written by Adrienne Marie Brown, read by Naomi Kirst-Schultz, August 16th, 2022. Thanks for reading along.